Hello, whisperers. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy tonight's tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you know. Now, dim the lights, and let's begin tonight's story. I don't think people understand what Death Valley heat feels like unless they've been in it. It wasn't like a summer day. It felt like standing under a hairdryer with your skin already sunburnt, like molecules in the air were vibrating faster than they're supposed to, and somehow angry about it. My eyes stung just from existing. My scalp stizzled under the boonie hat. Even the dust felt nuclear. Dalton kept dumping water into his mouth and missing half because his hands shook from the heat. "How does anything live out here?" he asked. I didn't answer. Maybe things didn't just survive here. Maybe the things that survived here were never meant to leave. Mercer checked his map board and pointed us toward a canyon slit that almost looked man-made. Tall vertical walls, shade broken in thin strips, like a cage door left cracked just enough to tempt you inside. This spot was where the 2 rangers were killed. We found the first body within 2 minutes. It wasn't buried, not dragged off. It wasn't even eaten all the way. It looked like it was sampled. The arms were torn off, not chewed, ripped from the socket like someone wanted to see if tendons pop before bones snap. The ribs were spread open like a book, the spine bent in a shape a spine can't bend. The face wasn't bitten. The face was smashed flat by blunt force impact. Stone, maybe, or claws hitting like hammers. Dalton dry heaved and turned away. Mercer crouched. He didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, this wasn't hunger. This was testing, like it wanted to learn how humans break. We pushed deeper. Every 10 feet the canyon narrowed. The heat amplified. It felt like pushing into some kind of furnace throat. Somewhere above us, silent, something moved across stone. Pebbles rained down once. Something big, something patient. The second body was worse. Half of it was plastered onto the canyon wall like wet meat someone slapped and left. Bits of spine embedded into the rock like toothpicks. The head and torso were 30 feet apart. Dalton whispered, "This isn't an animal kill. This is cruelty." I kept thinking about that vampire nest in Russia, how some things enjoy the sound of breaking bones, how the world keeps showing me that evolution doesn't just produce predators. It produces monsters that love the moment prey realizes it loses. We stopped speaking entirely. The heat suddenly went quiet, like the air wasn't moving. No wind, no insects. Even the dust stopped floating. That horrible moment when nature hits absolute mute. Mercer silently held up his fist. Freeze in place. I angled my rifle up. A shape peeled off the canyon wall above us like it was camouflaged there the whole time. Wings folded tight to the body like dried leather. Bone spines along each wing joint. Head more like a vulture skull than lizard. Long hooked beak. Eyes sunken inside black pits. It dropped straight down from the cliff and landed on a hiker 20 yards ahead of us. A guy we didn't even know was alive. He barely had time to turn. It snapped his spine backward in one motion, fast, clean, surgical. The wyvern hissed and dragged the body up the cliff face like it weighed nothing, moving with impossible strength, claws gouging stone like foam. Blood streaked downward in little droplets like liquid pepper spray. Dalton whispered, voice dry, shaking, defeated, "We aren't the hunters here." And when he said it, it felt true in a way that made my stomach crawl. We waited for night because Mercer said night actually gave us a chance. Thermal advantage, better contrast, easier to see motion, easier to read heat signature off something that big. But when night came, I swear Death Valley became worse. Night didn't cool here. Night just stripped the illusion that daylight offered. It felt like the desert didn't need sun to hurt you. It wanted us raw. Dalton was jittery, couldn't hold still, kept checking up at the canyon walls every few seconds like the rock itself was breathing. I felt myself doing it too. The wyvern taught us instantly that vertical space wasn't safe. Horizontal wasn't safe. There was no angle where you felt like you could watch enough coverage. Mercer didn't talk except when necessary. He just kept whispering small, little vector corrections, like 2 degrees right, or slow your breathing, or don't clench your grip, like we were snipers lining up a single shot. Except this thing wasn't waiting politely for us. We pushed deeper into the canyon, wider basin area. Good kill geometry if we could get it to commit. Dalton tossed a flare and it rolled into a crack, lighting the rock with this weird, sick red splash. It didn't feel helpful. It felt like a neon sign saying, "We're still alive. Please hurt us again." We finally saw it move at ground level, not flying, not even running, just sliding through the stone shadows like it didn't weigh anything. The wing membranes twitched every few feet, tiny micro adjustments, correcting balance like a vulture repositioning mid-meal. Dalton whispered too loud, "It's stalking." Before I could even put a hand on him to quiet him, it lunged. Not at me, at Dalton. It slammed into him sideways, like a raptor hitting a deer at 60 miles per hour. He flew 10 feet, hit a boulder, and slid down, leaving a smear of blood like finger paint. His scream choked off halfway like his lungs forgot how to function. Mercer didn't think, didn't posture, didn't hesitate. He moved toward the wyvern like a surgeon walking into an operating table, firing controlled bursts into the left shoulder joint where the wing met body. Bone shards cracked outward. The wyvern shrieked, a dry, horrible metal grinding sound, like someone dragging a car hood across concrete. It didn't run, it didn't panic. It looked back at Mercer like it recognized him. That silent second where predator and predator just understood each other, that was the worst moment of the night. Then it peeled away from Dalton and disappeared behind a rock wall like it phased out of geometry. Dalton gasped, voice raspy, trying to force pitch back into his throat. I almost died. I almost died. I almost... Mercer put a hand on him. Just one simple, steadying hand on the back of his neck. You didn't. Those two words grounded him enough to force breath again. I wasn't calm, though. I realized something then, something I really hated admitting. This monster wasn't charging because it felt threatened. It was charging because it was entertained. This thing didn't see us as food. It saw us as playtime. And when we limped back to a defensible rock funnel, patching Dalton's bleeding shoulder, trying to make perimeter, Mercer said it flat, without fear, without drama, just truth. It will come at dawn, when the heat rises, when this canyon becomes an oven. That's when it finishes things. I stared at the canyon throat, the same place it vanished into, and I felt something sink inside me like a stone dropped into oil. Tomorrow wasn't a chance to survive. Tomorrow was round 2. Dawn in Death Valley wasn't sunrise, it was execution. The air temperature spiked so fast, my breath felt syrup thick inside my throat. Dalton could barely lift his rifle steady with his shoulder wrapped. Mercer didn't say it out loud, but I know he knew. If this thing went for Dalton again, it would kill him fast. I kept replaying Alaska, then Russia, then here. I kept thinking how every creature we faced lately was just wrong in ways that felt engineered. But I shoved it down. This thing wanted us scared, and fear was already leaking out between my ribs. We set the trap inside a narrow rock funnel that looked like 2 mountains clenched tight together. Mercer placed directional charges in the channel points where he predicted the Wyvern would push through. Not a wall charge, more like a forced lane collapse. Dalton whispered, "It'll smell the explosive." Mercer didn't blink. It doesn't care what kills us. Heat matters more than scent here. And I realized something sick about this place, maybe even sick about this creature. The desert wanted to watch things suffer. It showed itself slowly. No grand entrance, no dramatic flight, just a slow shadow creeping across a hot rock ledge like death, casually stretching before the main event. When it stepped into direct light, every inch of its leather skin looked dry and cracked, like someone tried to tan hide using nuclear blast heat instead of chemicals. Bone spines along the wing joints were darker, almost charred. Its head tilted with a slow, predatory twitch, like a starving crow trying to focus on one specific eye. It wanted to pluck first. Then it rushed, not flying, not pouncing, but galloping with this unnatural long stride, wings half folded like knives. Dalton shouted something, but I can't even remember what. I don't think I processed sound correctly anymore. I aimed center mass and fired, rounds punching through fractured hide but not slowing it nearly enough. It closed distance so fast, I felt the wind pressure beating against my face. Its jaw opened, rows of hooked bone, vulture teeth, meant for stripping, not swallowing. Mercer shouted, "Now!" I hit the detonator. The rocks on both sides sheared inward like a hydraulic press, collapsing the funnel in a sudden sideways crush. Dust and dirt kicked up. The Wyvern hit that stone pinch at full sprint, and the impact was monstrous. Bones cracking like steel rebar snapping. It screamed. Not pain, not fear, just pure rage. That was my moment. I climbed up the debris pile, chest heaving, weapon shaking in my hands, and fired into its skull point blank until the shriek cut out mid-choke. And it finally went still. The canyon suddenly felt empty. Too empty. Like everything in the world just stopped to listen to its death echo. Dalton slumped against the wall, shaking, bleeding, alive. Mercer put a hand on the corpse like he was confirming gravity still existed. "This one wasn't ancient," he said quietly. "This was young." My stomach twisted. If this was young, what did an adult wyvern look like? We dragged the remains to the extraction marker hours later, half delirious from heat, half certain we wouldn't even make it to the heli-drop zone without our hearts cooking in our chests. At the pickup, Mercer didn't look at me when he spoke. He just stared forward through the thermals rising off the salt flats. "One more hunt before we close 1990 out," he said. "Command just tagged it, and this one isn't animal." I looked out across the endless death heat haze, and something in my stomach felt like cold oil. If Death Valley was animal, then whatever was next had to be something worse than evolution.